And I would echo Shoshana. It's great to see so many of you out here today, and it takes a team to solve a problem out here that we have, and it's not a simple problem, it's not a simple challenge, but working together as a team, as partners, that's the way we get things done. And in a critical area like this, it takes cooperation, it takes good faith efforts, and it takes skills and abilities that we all bring to the table in different ways to get these things done. So it's great to see the accomplishments here in the face of adversity. And again, I want to hats off to the CDOT, the maintenance crews, and the local folks here for getting this job done. What a challenge between the wildfires and then the floods. You got 2 summers back to back with differing challenges, but similar challenges, and they really rose to the occasion. So hats off to them, Andrew, and all your folks. That was great. Want to highlight a little bit about I-70 through here, and I think it's one of those things that 3 years ago we kind of knew that this was an important roadway, important facility, but we kind of had it proven to us in a big way between the fires and then the floods with all the closures. It's a critical link in not only our local system but our national transportation system. So it's not just getting between Glenwood and Eagle. It's also getting between Denver and Grand Junction and the rest of the western slope. But beyond that, if you're going from Chicago and you're shipping something to Las Vegas, it's coming right through here. And when this is closed, it's a major impact to the national freight network, not just to us in Colorado. So that was really driven home to us, and fortunately that was probably a lesson we kind of didn't want to have to learn, but we did learn it. And I think now we're learning the lesson of what do we do going forward to make it so that should future events occur, they're not as severe, and what can we do to make it go better. So preparation for future emergencies, I know several folks are going to talk about that, and I want to commend CDOT for one example that they did after the fires. And the command center, the Hanging Lake Tunnel Command Center, sits with Cinnamon Creek coming right down, kind of aiming right at it. And after the fires, CDOT did a lot of work to protect that building in the event of future floods. And at the time, I was like, well, that's great. But I was kind of skeptical this is really going to work. And boy, I was proven that they knew exactly what they were doing, because when the floods came the following year, the building was protected. But for doing that, it would have cost them, millions and millions of dollars to replace that. It would have been catastrophic. But the preventive work that was done protected the building and kept things in operation. So that was a great example of preparing for those future eventualities that we don't know for sure are going to happen, but we can do the best we can and do what we can to protect that. So great example of doing the things we can to be prepared for that. Federal Highway has been proud to partner with CDOT in the restoration work here. There's been a lot done over the last 9 months here, and great to see the progress that's been made. There's more to come. We're almost done, but then there's the preparing for what might happen next. So again, looking forward to working with CDOT and all the other agencies that are involved and doing what we can to make this go as well as possible. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Steve Harrelson, CDOT's Chief Engineer. And Steve.
Thanks, John. John touched a little bit on the partnerships, and our partnership with the FHWA has certainly been wonderful. I can't commend them enough as to how responsive they've been. But some other partners that have been critical in this have been our partners with the Forest Service. As you look around, the highway is a few hundred feet wide, but the whole watershed is many square miles, and the Forest Service is charged with maintaining that, and we have partnered with them in an unprecedented ways on this project. We've had to pull out all the tools in our tool chest to maintain this road after the fires, during the floods of last summer, and we've developed some techniques with the Forest Service where we have to get on their property and work with them and design and construct facilities that will slow down the water coming down the canyon, try to mitigate those mudslides so that they don't get to the highway, and still respect the integrity of the forest. So the Forest Service has been great to work with. We've designed some what I like to call bathtubs at the edge of the road, where when the mudslides come down, they'll fill the bathtubs up rather than filling the roadway up. That's a technique that's been used in other parts of the world. I'm not sure it's been used a whole lot in Colorado, We've got some experience with other forest fires in Colorado on Highway 14, Highway 24, the Waldo Canyon fires. Over the last decade, we've learned a lot. We're applying those lessons here, and hopefully we'll be able to apply those better this summer. The big lesson that the big lesson that we've learned in these other fires is that the first year or two is the worst, and then the slopes stabilize after that. We're trying to do some soil treatments, slowing the water down as it flows down the canyon walls to keep it from mobilizing mud and debris and getting onto the road. So hopefully this summer will be better than last summer, but it's just going to get better as Mother Nature heals the canyon. We know there's a deal of interest in the future of Cottonwood Pass. That's another partnership we've been working on. The Cottonwood Pass is a county road owned by Eagle and Garfield counties. Starting last fall, we started meeting with those agencies, identifying potential improvement areas for the road. We've just led a contract here in the last week or so where we will complete mapping and right-of-way work on that path. So we will be able to know, where the counties own the right-of-way, where the Forest Service owns it, where private owners own it, or where the BLM owns it. So if we have to straighten some curves or widen the roadway, we'll be able to do that. There are a number of grant opportunities in the bipartisan infrastructure law. We're trying to set ourselves up so that we will be ready to apply for those grants as soon as we get these designs and partner again with Eagle and Garfield counties to get those roads improved. They're not going to become state highways. I think both counties are very strong believers in keeping those as county roads, but we want to harden them and make them a better detour route. Those of you who have not been over Cottonwood Pass, it is a little better than a Jeep road. It's not set up for interstate traffic, and we don't want to encourage anyone to use it. We're going to do our best to keep this canyon open, but Cottonwood Pass is not an interstate detour, so stay off of it if you don't understand what you're getting into. And Cottonwood is closed for the season at the moment. With that, I will pass it along to Andrew Knapp, who's the resident engineer for the project.
Thanks, Steve. Just want to take this moment to really emphasize how much of a team effort everything has been to get where we are now. From our maintenance forces mobilizing from across the state to get the road reopened, to our excellent contractor partners doing what was needed to get the road repaired and restored and debris removed from the river. Right now this week we're wrapping up work on the 6th major pile of debris in the river. The contractors have completed removing debris of the 4 piles above the power plant and trucking that debris out of the canyon. And they have reshaped a 5th pile below the power plant where we weren't able to do any off-haul operations, and now they're wrapping up on the 6th pile, which is really putting us in good shape for the upcoming runoff this spring. It's been a great team effort between the contractors, CDOT, the Forest Service, and the whitewater rafting community to pull together to get that work done and put us in good position here this spring. We, as Steve said, we just advertised an additional project as a result of these debris flows to construct some additional mitigation, replacing our super sacks adjacent to the highway with a more permanent flexible debris flow catchment fence. And there's another location that's due to get a debris flow catchment fence, excavation of those bathtubs, as Steve called them, to create some additional storage for debris and hopefully reduce the length of closures of the canyon if we do have future debris flow events. So we're watching the weather closely and hoping for a a much calmer summer this year after the record monsoon seasons, but we'll see what happens. And with that, I'll move over to Director Willis with Office of Emergency Management.
All right, thank you, Andrew.
Yeah, just make sure it's kind of tipped closer.
As Andrew said, I'm Mike Willis. I'm the Director of the Office of Emergency Management for the state of Colorado, and I really want to echo many of the comments that my colleagues have said, in that it's been a real partnership preparing not only to clean up the canyon and get the canyon ready for the summer, but also to prepare for what may happen throughout the next several months as we head into to the summer. Director Liu mentioned the 2 exercises that we did with partners at the local level, the state level, the federal level, and including many of our private sector partners. And that's critical to be prepared for the things that may happen throughout the year. And of course, very diligently this summer, emergency management staff will constantly monitor the conditions in and around the canyon, and will remain prepared to assist local and state agencies with response and recovery if necessary. I don't have to tell you, you already all know that the risks of wildfires and mud or rock flows in the canyon are significant this summer. What we ask from the public is please don't be complacent when you're traveling through the canyon. We're not being complacent, and we ask that you, the traveling public, partner with us in not being complacent. We work really hard to have a plan, and so we ask all of the traveling public to do the same. Have a plan. As you approach the canyon, know what you're getting into. Stay in touch with the National Weather Service or the counties on either side of the canyon to make sure that you understand the conditions in the canyon before you go in, to keep you out of harm's way. And please respect those warnings and respect the direction from the Colorado State Patrol or the Colorado Department of Transportation. If it says don't go in the canyon, please don't go in the canyon. One thing to remember is once you're in the canyon, it's hard for us to tell you that things are changing, because as you know, there's not a lot of great communication. So know before you go. And I'll turn it over here to my partner in the Colorado State Patrol, Captain Rapp.
Thank you, Director. Again, my name is Jared Rapp, and I'm the Troop Captain for 4C. I have the distinction of having 5 counties, and 3 of those are on the interstate with Garfield, Eagle, and Summit County. And if you've ever been to one of my press conferences or releases or whatever before, I'm going to give you old shtick, but it plays true every single night. With Garfield County having Glenwood Canyon, Eagle County having Vail Pass, and Summit County having Eisenhower, there's not a single night that my wife doesn't roll over and roll her eyes and blame me for my phone ringing when one of my mistresses calls at an inconvenient hour. And Glenwood Canyon has played out to be every bit the fun person to call you in the middle of the night that the 2 passes have been. Working with CDOT, I've actually had the distinction to be able to be with the patrol long enough that I've worked every county on the western slope of Colorado, with the exception of Mesa County. In this last year, I saw a lot of familiar faces that I'd made over 20 years ago, and it almost felt like a Christmas Carol when you were rolling upon a ghost as you came through the canyon, and there was a friend that you'd made in Durango, but you realized the resources that CDOT had to pull to be able to get this canyon open again. They were moving people from all over the state, and those areas of the state suffered their services so that we could open up this canyon and get this vital corridor open again. And I would like to roll back into what Director Liu talked about with the UTC meetings that we had, one in Gunnison and one in Glenwood. And those centered around those alternate detour routes, the northern route and the southern route. And those are where we're putting our resources so that we can get people safely from one side of the state to the other when this canyon closes. There's no ideal alternate route right now that doesn't add time. But when we open up that alternate route, it's because we know that that closure is probably going to last longer than it'll take you to drive that detour route. When you pick a different route that's not one of those dedicated routes, you're going out on your own essentially. And some of them aren't dedicated for passenger vehicles. And then we have to pull those resources that we put on those routes for safety reasons to make sure traffic's flowing to go rescue someone in their time of need. And it just compounds the issues on top of each other. And that was one of the big takeaways from our UTC. So my plea is stay on the northern or southern routes, no matter how many Conostega wagons made it across the northern part of this canyon before we put 2 ribbons of asphalt across. And then the last thing that I want to reiterate is there are towns and communities along the interstate that have been vital partnerships with their, not only their law enforcement agencies, but their town and county leadership. In Garfield County, Eagle County, but then also Rifle, Newcastle, Silt, Glenwood. I'm going the opposite direction, so Gypsum and Eagle. The citizens of those towns are impacted even more so than the people that are coming along the interstate whenever a closure happens. We have people that 2 or 3 hours wait in the traffic queue just to get home that's been 3 or 4 miles from where they started work to getting home. And so when those detour routes are open, some of it's to relieve the congestion so that people can get home to their families. So instead of waiting for 6, 7, 8 hours, those alternate routes will get you there within a couple of hours. Thank you for all the efforts with all our partners, and I'll turn it over to David Boyd with the Forest Service.
Thank you, Captain. I'm David Boyd, Public Affairs Officer with the White River National Forest. Forest Supervisor Scott Fitzwilliams is in Mexico, and so I said, no problem, I have your back, and I'd be happy to take your spot in Mexico, and you can come to Glenwood Canyon, and well, I'm here and he's in Mexico. So he did want to pass on his regards and his congratulations for this incredible amount of work that's been accomplished since the summer storms in this last summer. I mean, when you think of where things were at the beginning of August 2021 and where we are now, it's pretty incredible. So congratulations on that. You know, the White River National Forest is 2.3 million acres, and by far the most common question I've gotten over the past 2 years is, how is Hanging Lake? How is the trail to Hanging Lake? So as I think you all know, Hanging Lake is as beautiful as ever. Survived the Grizzly Creek fire, survived the debris flows. The trail to Hanging Lake, not so much. So pretty big impacts from the debris flows last summer. So we're working very closely with the City of Glenwood, National Forest Foundation, other partners. We'll be starting construction on a primitive trail to get folks up to Hanging Lake at the end of the week. So on Friday, we'll start construction of this primitive trail. What that actually means, we'll see. Maybe some stream crossings, some scrambling over debris, flows, that kind of thing. But we're hoping for that primitive trail to be open by midsummer. So more to come on that. We're working very closely with City of Glenwood Springs and the Glenwood Chamber of Commerce and our other partners, and we'll get word out on that as soon as we can. In the meantime, we'll also be designing and working on a long-term permanent trail to Hanging Lake, one that will be very sustainable, last the next 50 to 100 years to get folks up there. That's going to take a few years to get that done. Now again, working with City of Glenwood Springs, the National Forest Foundation, they've been able to secure a lot of funding for that, including a Great Outdoors Colorado grant. And because of that work, we'll be able to get this permanent trail done much, much sooner than we would have otherwise. So really appreciate that. The other, other thing we're working on, of course, is Glenwood Canyon restoration. So a lot of the natural restoration is going very well. So as the fire burned, the root system's still in the soil in a lot of places. The seeds were still there, so we're seeing good growth, good recovery across much of the Grizzly Creek fire burn scar. There's some areas we're looking at doing some aerial mulching, which will help treat some of these areas where the soil was really damaged. So just kind of help accelerate that soil recovery so the resulting vegetation then can recover. So we're working on that, and we're continuing to work on areas where maybe there's some noxious weeds or different things that have resulted from the fire. Coordinating very closely with CDOT and our other partners on that. So we really appreciate the close coordination we've gotten from CDOT over these past 2 years, and again, job well done. So thank you for that. And with that, turn it over to Garfield County Commissioner Tom Jankowski.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, David. I'd just like to say that from Garfield County to CDOT, thank you. Thank you very much. You know, after the slide came down, I think it was only 10 days or so that it took you guys to get at least one lane going each way. And then when I looked at all that debris and all the damage, I thought, no way are they going to have this open again to 4 lanes by Thanksgiving, but they did. So thank you to maintenance, thank you to Mike Goolsby and his team that got this done. Garfield County really appreciates that. When I look at this summer, I do hope that we do get rain because I don't like wildfires. At the same time, I hope that there's no mudslides in Glenwood Canyon. Garfield County and Eagle County and Pickens County have a population combined of about 140,000 people, and this east-west connection is extremely important. And when it shuts down, we need to be able to get workers back and forth. People need to get back and forth for doctor's appointments and so forth. So it's extremely important for us, if Glenwood Canyon shuts down, that both Independence Pass and Cottonwood are open. And thank you to CDOT, to Steve, for looking into Cottonwood Pass. You know, that Blue Hill there is a 1-lane road for about a mile, and Eagle County has to put flaggers up there when Glenwood Canyon gets closed down. So for Eagle County, I hope that we can share some of the burden with them when they, if they have to do that. But again, Cottonwood Pass is important. I'm looking forward to us getting some improvements on there so it can become just a regular county road year-round with 2-lane traffic. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jonathan Godes, who's the mayor of Glenwood Springs.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate everybody coming out today. You know, Glenwood Springs is working towards resiliency and redundancy in the changing climate that we have. We've been preparing for our spring runoff by removing debris from above our water intake, by constructing a second pipeline on the Roaring Fork River so that we have the redundancy of both the Grizzly Creek and No Name intake as well as the Roaring Fork River. All this work is important to safeguard both our drinking water for the community and our tourism economy. This work for emergency preparedness is due to a great many partners that we have. Forest Service, I will start naming the Forest Service, CDOT. Of course, we've gotten to know Director Lou fairly well over the last couple of years. I'd say unfortunately, but it's fortunate. She's delightful. The federal CWCB, Colorado Conservation Water Board, the Forest Service, all the work that's being done, as David said, for Hanging Lake, our contractors, all the people that work their butt off to get out that debris from the river, and really the CDOT frontline employees, the maintenance people that got that road open and who are really the unsung heroes when there's any kind of warning, a flood warning, a snowstorm, a wreck in the canyon. You guys, along with CSP, are fantastic partners. So I just want to thank everybody, the partners that have come to all make this possible. Glenwood Springs is a smaller community with limited resources, and having all these partners, FEMA, sorry, that is helping us out, helping get through our community, the region, and the state through this process has been really inspirational, and all of our residents in Glenwood, thank you all. All this to say, we have focused on long-term climate resiliency while encouraging our vibrant community. We're one of the fun towns in America. We look to stay that way. We're open for business, open for tourism, and we hope everybody will come and see what a great town we are this summer and can get there safely and have a great time. Thank you very much. I'll now introduce Todd Blake, CDOT.
Thanks, Jonathan. Along with all of our stakeholders, CDOT maintenance has been working hard this winter to get everything prepared and ready for the spring. We've been moving resources around, as Captain Rapp and everybody brought it up, working with our stakeholders on our unified traffic control plan to make sure we can route detour routes out around the canyon. One of our stakeholders that we work really closely with is NOAA National Weather Service, and developing our plans for what our watches, warnings, and when we open and close the canyon. So staying right now until we know some more on revegetation, how that looks this spring. We're going to stay with the same protocols as last year. Once we go to a watch over the Grizzly Creek burn scar will be our trigger point. The night before, we will get a forecast from NOAA on a probability. If it's above 30% probability of hitting a watch or a warning, the next day we will go ahead and close the rest areas and the recreation path through the canyon, which that just allows us time to get everybody out safely and that. So when we do come down a closure and it's within minutes, we're not having to worry about the rest areas and the bike path that clear those folks out. Then once we get to the next day, we actually work really close with NOAA. And when they forecast and we go do a watch over the Grizzly Creek burn scar, we'll actually implement our folks. We'll start showing up at all the closure points, which will be West Rifle, Glenwood, Dot Zero, and then at Walcott along I-70. And then along with we'll have people on Highway 82 at Aspen, and then on the Twin Lakes side to watch that, to try to keep CNVs and enough people from going up Independence and plugging that detour out. So once that's established, hopefully with the watch, we'll have time to get our people in place. And then once it goes to a warning, once we hit a warning, we'll institute closure. We'll close the interstate down at that point and sweep it, make sure nobody's trapped in the canyon. And then we'll wait it out until the warning's over. Once the warning's over, between CSP and us, we will come back in the canyon and hopefully we'll have no debris flows and we'll be able to open the road back up. But if there's debris flows, we have loaders, plows on each end, and we'll work hard to try to get it open as quick as we can. And then depending on the length of closure, if it's looking like any type of, more than a couple hours, we'll definitely make sure our detour routes are implemented and folks are pushed that way. Like I recommended, 13 to 40 back to 9 is the main detour route that'll be advertised. But as we all know, as the season goes, they could have a fire, they could have a flood, construction projects. We may have to look at all the other detour routes that we have available. And like we've talked about, please look at CoTrip ahead of time. If you use CoTrip, it'll show you which detour routes are recommended, where our projects are at, detour times. And then, as it's been brought up multiple times, please stay on state highways, use those detour routes, because a lot of our secondary roads that Waze, Google, they'll try to route you over roads that are not made for compact cars or semis, and then we have to divert resources from the cities, the counties, and the state to go help relieve those. So that's kind of where we're headed. We'll kind of stay at the same plan as last year, and then hopefully, like everybody's brought, we'll get rain, but not enough rain to cause closures. So with that, I'll hand it back to Stacia.
All right, thank you, TJ, and thank you to all of our speakers for coming out here and providing an update for this upcoming season. Just a reminder, as CDOT and all of our partner agencies have been talking about how we've been prepared for any closures or any potential incidents in Glenwood Canyon, we also ask for motorists to do their part to be prepared. So always check cotrip.org before you head out onto a road trip or wherever you're going to see if there's any road closures. There will be a detour map on CoTrip as well. CDOT does have a brand new app that you can download onto your iPhone or Android phones as well. That is called the CoTrip Planner app. So another really great way to stay up to date on any road closures that you might have or that there might be. All right, so now I'm going to open it up for questions for our speakers. Yes.
I have one for Steve.
All right.
Hi. Shoot.
Spencer Wilson with CBS4. I was just checking in. I understand that we are praying that the weather's going to cooperate. I just didn't know how much of this we were counting on. Our new additions like the bathtubs you mentioned, or if this is just really going to be up to Mother Nature and how lucky we get.
Well, I think the canyon is healed more, but it's not completely healed. So what I would suggest is, do a gentle rain dance. So do a little dance for some gentle rain. We don't want the big gully washers. Talking to hydrologists, the event that caused the big mudslides, we would have had problems with that without the fire. I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but it was a couple inches of rain in like 15 minutes, and that's a 100 year event. And the burn scar had, it probably exacerbated the issue, but we would have had mudslides without the burn. The burn has had one more year to heal. It had lots of moisture last year, so some of that vegetation had a chance to recover. So, and on our experience on other fires throughout the state, it gets better year over year. So it's generally a 4 or 5 year healing process, and we're through the worst year, and it should just get better from here on out.
Weren't Andrew talking a little bit about how the Super Sacks performed?
Yes, here's Andrew. He's going to talk about Super Sacks, aka knapsacks.
I've never heard that term before. Yeah, so immediately after the debris flows at Blue Gulch, where we had the most major damage to the interstate, it was a whole new world. You know, before you'd be hard pressed to see that there was even a drainage in that location. But after the debris flows, a huge chasm had opened up and uncovered rocks the size of a garage, moved some of those rocks that big into the river, and the whole length of that drainage had gotten scoured by that major debris flow event and oversteepened those adjacent slopes. And when those slopes are oversteepened, they're eventually going to lay back to their more natural angle of repose and deposit some of that material into the channel. Some of it would naturally run down to the bottom, to the river, hopefully not with traffic in the way. So with that new hazard that was presented itself, you know, we wanted to get the highway reopened quickly, but not at the expense of the safety of the traveling public. So in order to get quick temporary rockfall mitigation in place, we were able to utilize super sacks, which are roughly 1 cubic yard, 3 foot by 3 foot by 3 foot, about 3,000 plus pounds a piece, and stack those into a makeshift sandbag wall. You know, we were originally looking at utilizing those super sacks to protect our infrastructure from scour due to the debris flows in the river. That was not able to be implemented, but we were able to pivot and utilize material to provide the temporary rockfall protection at Blue Gulch. And to date, nothing has made it through the super sacks. Hopefully we don't have a full test of those with weather cooperating. And then with the project we have coming out to bid right now, we're looking to remove those super sacks and get a more permanent rockfall and debris flow mitigation system put in place there at the bottom of Blue Gulch. So hopefully we got some interested contractors out here in the audience, so they're looking for another round in the canyon. And yeah, we'll see what happens.
How much of this, though, it sounds like we're optimistic, and we have been able to put measures into place, but how much of this is really just up to chance in terms of, is there something we can even use to prevent something catastrophic happening again this summer?
Well, unfortunately, in the canyon, Mother Nature has the final say. We can do our best and mitigate to the best of our abilities. Immediately after the fire, we did some high-level analysis utilizing computer modeling and rockfall modeling software to look at installing mitigation elements at Blue Gulch prior to the major debris flows. And our consultant ultimately recommended no mitigation be installed in that drainage because there was nothing currently on the market that could withstand those energy levels. So after witnessing the results of the Blue Gulch debris flows, I'd have to say they're probably right. I think anything we would have put in there would have been on the bottom of the river or on its way down to Utah. But we're doing everything we can, with the time frames we're given. It was less than a year from after the fire to when the debris flows happened. And now it's less than a year after the debris flows, and we're putting another contract on the streets, and we're looking to construct some additional mitigation. But if we do have another extreme event, it will likely overcome those mitigation features.
Thank you.
Great. Next question.
This is either for David or Mayor Godis. I know you've been in communication with the River District. If you could tell us what damage, if any, has been done to the river banks, the riverbed, etc.
I'm up here.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm the best one. I don't know if engineers have a better sense of. Yeah, I think it.
He's been running the river project.
Could you repeat that again, please?
What damage has been sustained by the river, the banks, the bed, so forth?
You know, I have a friend who works in the industry, and he likes to remind me that, you know, the river will be fine. The river will recover. It's the infrastructure we have to worry about. And, you know, that was the focus of the debris removal projects that we had going on this summer. You know, as part of those projects, we cut back the major piles and tried to mimic the riverbank that was there prior to the events. We worked closely with our forest partners to agree on the ultimate configuration of the river channel through those work areas. And based on their guidance and feedback, we placed some, you know, additional timber material, dispersed that around the embankments to try and create better habitat for regeneration of the slopes and restoration of the riverbanks through there. And we've recently completed some seeding and mulching of those areas as well to help accelerate that recovery. So the river will be fine.
My question's for either Andrew or Shoshana. Do you have estimated cost, how much has been spent on the restoration efforts at this point? And if you have that, do you have an idea of how much it could cost overall?
I don't have those those numbers at my fingertips, but I will say that it's over $20 million that's been spent on this between the initial maintenance response to reopen the highway to our multiple engineering contracts ongoing. It's definitely been a major expense, and thanks to the cooperation of FHWA with those quick release funds and our partners at the Transportation Commission at the state level releasing some contingency funds, we've been able to move quickly to immediately get contracts out there on the street and contractors up and running. And as things wrap up and those contracts are completed, we'll continue to work with FHWA for final reimbursement.
As of a week or two ago, it was about $27 million in reimbursements to date. It's sort of a fluid number because the way the federal program works is we submit expenses as they are ongoing, and then they get reimbursed from there. So there will continue to be additional expenses. You know, for example, we are hopeful that the mitigation project that just got underway gets reimbursed, but that doesn't happen until after we've accrued the obligation. When we submitted the initial sort of expense projection to the Federal Highway Administration, we actually included a sort of plug number for Cottonwood Pass in that number, knowing that it might or might not come through via that mechanism, but it was an important way to sort of start the conversation with the federal government about the need for the alternate route conversation. Importantly, the Transportation Commission recently approved roughly $1.5 million for upfront expenses to kind of determine the surveying needs for right-of-way acquisition to do those improvements on Cottonwood Pass. That's kind of an important critical path first step to turning an idea into a real project. I mean, folks will recall that concept has come up in the past. There wasn't consensus among all of the government partners until the incredible work that's happened over the last few months. So now that there's sort of consensus on the idea, turning it into an actual project with a more precise cost estimate is the next step, and that's what that sort of study work from the Transportation Commission allows us to do. So, the number for the kind of long-term piece, which was, a large component of the original request, will only continue to get refined over the coming months as that work ensues. And it's being led by our engineers in the Eagle residency. So it actually has a project manager and has kind of a management structure in the agency now. And whether or not it's the emergency relief funds, we're planning to pursue federal grants for that project.
If I might follow with a question, about how far are you in the process of mitigation and repair work within the Glenwood Canyon, and about when do you think that work will complete?
It depends which piece of the work. There are several, and look, it's an ongoing challenge, right? Our maintenance forces are out there every summer, even under the best of circumstances, clearing culverts, patching potholes, fixing the pavement that takes a beating every year. So there's always kind of resiliency work going on in the canyon. There are some key pieces that have gotten done and that are underway. Obviously the kind of big component was to fix the damage that happened last year, right? And that included major resiliency improvements, because one of the things that happened at milepost 123.5 was the failure of a very large box culvert, which needed to be ultimately completely replaced. So that whole package of the work is done. The team has been out there all year clearing the smaller culverts throughout the canyon, and again, that's something that does happen as a matter of course, but there's been an enhanced effort to really get ahead of that as much as physically possible, ahead of spring runoff season. The work in the river, I would say, is one of the biggest items of resiliency work we could do, because the reason it had to be done was, had it not happened, the flooding during spring runoff would have been almost inevitable. So really the focus over the last few months has been on getting that done ahead of the spring season, and with it being on track to complete this week, that milestone is complete. There continue to be additional elements like the ones that Andrew talked about that are getting underway, and we can always do more to add, but an awful lot of additional fencing has been added in the past year. As you drive through, you can see it. The replacement structure for those super sacks is just to kind of make them more permanent, but they've been doing their job. So I would say in full that it's an ongoing process where there's going to continue to be new needs that arise, just as there would on any road, but particularly any road in an environment as fragile as this one. But that the things that we had sort of started last year to get done by the spring have met their deadlines. Clear as mud.
All right, so we will be able to do individual interviews. Just come up to me and we will help to get those scheduled up here. Thank you guys.